I guess you mainly deal with the policy side. Do you feel like these policies get enforced? The police and everything, sometimes it can be quite a frustrating thing to enact these things.
There has to be sanity in the internet space. So if there's no sanity, it means there'll be chaos. There are so many committees that sit for specific things, for security, policies in terms of different the market segments. We also have people that also sell, because domains are sold to other people that also resell.
And how do you see, I guess you mainly deal with the policy side, but do you feel like these policies get enforced very easily? As sometimes, working with the police and everything, sometimes it can be quite a frustrating thing to enact these things. I don't know if you've had any experience or feel like the policies actually are able to be enforced well.
Well, the policies are enforced. I have to say, like, in terms of ICANN, policies have to enforce, because they regulate all the domains in the world. So there has to be sanity in the internet space. So if there's no sanity, it means there'll be chaos.
Yeah.
So there has to be people that enforce. There are so many committees that sit for specific things, for security, for policies in terms of different the market segments. We also have people that also sell, because domains are sold to other people that also resell. So there's very many players, and before something really gets out of hand, it has already been enforced. And the good thing, if you are the regulator and the person that provides the domain, it's very easy for you to take it down, but you have to take it down with a clear rule, because of course they can contest if something has been taken down unfairly. So you have to have a policy that says this is not allowed, or this was a breach or something.
Yeah, I always hear these stories about these guys that are kind of maybe predatory in a way, that they go and they buy the domain names for very cheap, and then even they might, they buy a domain name that maybe for your company, and then now you want to buy the name, and they're like, okay, we need 5 million, 10 million to buy the name.
Yeah. Well, there's been issues like that, of course. There may be someone who can go and buy something to say, like, let's say something like Pamba.
Yeah.
And maybe Pamba is a well-renowned, like maybe Google or something.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, oh, Google did not buy the domain for South Africa. We're buying it. But now there are policies in place that prevent such, in terms of if someone is able to justify to a certain degree this is their portfolio or something, sure, then there's always ways. In terms, it's just like a court, and people come, you're like, oh, this is the person that says this is my domain, this is the one who bought. Yeah. But sometimes it's difficult. So as a business, you'll have to pay. But if you're a big business and you already have a big reach, you cannot go and buy Facebook.com and say it's mine.
They'll come after you. They have the lawyers and everything to make it very challenging.
It will even be very hard for you to prove ownership of the name and stuff. So there are other policies that also protect businesses. That's why the BC is there. Those companies, they sit in the BC and they discuss things that protect other businesses.
Yeah.
But of course, someone can buy your domain and you'll have no choice. Or a name that maybe you wanted, or you forget to renew your domain and it goes. So it's a hard process. But
yeah, it's difficult.
Sometimes people do get their domains back. Sometimes, So it's more of like a court process. You can win or lose. So
yeah, exactly. Well, that sounds quite challenging. I know for my company, SafeBoda, we have the name and everything, but then all the time you can look online and see some guy. He's like, oh, I started a new company. SafetyBoda.net or something like a similar name, because they're trying to leverage the name, but they they're trying to take advantage to make it look like they work for a big company, but then they, they're starting something, trying to get maybe investors.
Yeah.
Well, you sit on these committees and you're doing policy. At least in my experience, because I've done similar things. I've worked for a lot of government agencies. I've worked for NASA in the U.S., the Space Agency, various government entities, and I got more into entrepreneurship when I came here to East Africa. How do you kind of find the difference between the two, being the CEO of a company where you're like the boss, and then also dealing with these policy agencies? How is that environment different for you?
I think when it comes to the policies, it's more of documentation. Yeah. A lot of documentation, you need to know how to interpret rules. So it's quite a different dynamic for real. Because when I as a CEO, my role as a CEO, I think a lot in terms of numbers, in terms of revenue projections, in terms of market fit products. But in policies, it's more of what is this document saying to me? How is it affecting the business? How is it affecting the community? Is it something that if enforced, it will give a good outcome in terms of protecting the business and also protecting the organization? And those kind of things. So it's a very different mindset. When I am talking about policies and I'm sitting in committees, my mind is very different because there's no numbers at all.
Yeah. I find sometimes in the startup world, when you're trying to get an MVP together, you're trying to get the product out, you're worried about the cash flow, paying the employees. Sometimes I kind of become, I wouldn't say anti-policy, but it's kind of like, how do we move quickly and reduce the paperwork versus when you're in the policy agency, everything is about the process and, developing good paperwork, I guess. I've always found it a little bit different mentality.
Yeah, you have to think about money. You have to think where the next paycheck is going to come from. So it's a whole different mindset, but it's something I'm very keen with in terms of developing, because there are very few developers and people in the tech space that are in those conversations. So I'm very keen to be in those conversations so that I also put an input of a technical mind, apart from just lawyers speaking for you. Also, you be in the conversation so that you're able to drive it to suit your community as a developer as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, with your current company, kind of speaking of that, where in the life cycle are you with the current company? Do you have customers yet? Do you just have the MVP? Where are you in terms of the life cycle of your company?
So we have an MVP right now, very well and functioning MVP with all the major functionalities of product. We are on the customer acquisition. We have acquired a couple of customers. We're still very aggressively looking for customers to onboard. Still in the process of sales and everything. So a lot in the pipeline. We're also very keen now because we already have an MVP. We are developing a market fit product. So we are very keen to looking for VCs and also angel investors to come on board because we've already tested the product. It's very good for the market. The possibilities of growth and revenue projections in the next 2 years are quite good. So we are keen to capitalize on that knowledge and the traction that we have gotten, just to get into a level playing field in Africa context and also the world in the next couple of years.
Sure. How did you, when you started the company, how did you get the initial funding to, have the initial developers going? Did you have to pay them money, or did you offer them stock incentives? How did you have some savings? How did you get started?
So starting off, me and my partners raised money in terms of the initial revenue and funds to pay the developers. We also pay the developers and gave them a bit of stock in the company. So yes, they developed the solution, and we paid for the service, and also just to give a level of ownership to the product. I also believe in terms of if you want a product to last longer, you have to put the people into ownership and a sense of responsibility to the product. So the initial developers that we have, we give them stocks as well to the product. So we have a very good team.
Good incentives, I guess, to make sure that they work hard and if they can really
and also
win.
they feel ownership and they feel part of the product because true they're part of the journey because that's the initial team. So yeah, I believe that's the way development are right now. You have to you're paying a salary and also you have you give them some stock.
Yeah, and I guess one challenge that's come recently I've seen over the last few years, I think particularly since COVID, is the introduction of a lot of the big companies, the Microsoft, the Google, have come into East Africa. They're paying developer salaries very high. How do you kind of compete with that as from a small business perspective?
Well, I have to say, yeah, it's true. The salaries are high. Also, I have to admit, as a developer, maybe before that, yes, people are earning good money, but I think now the salaries are a bit more competitive, which is a good thing. It's a good thing to raise salaries for the developers. They do a good job, and so it's challenging for small businesses. But a lot of how we have tried to work mostly on contract basis and try to get someone on part-time basis, develop maybe if it's a mobile app, we develop the mobile app end to end, we pay, but okay with a lot of that. So it's easy for me to say maybe if I want the mobile app to be developed end to end, it will cost this amount of money, and that's it. And then maybe have someone on one person on permanent basis to monitor the system and to update and to do changes in terms of bugs and everything. But maintaining a very big team, it can be a challenge.
And as the CEO, are you managing all of those staff directly, or do you have have you hired like a level of staff on your team to manage that, or are you having to do most of the day-to-day code velocity and these type of things with the developers?
No, I engage, but not too much because I have a CTO. I also have a COO who are very into what the developers are doing and operations and everything. So yes, I am keen to see how the product is evolving and I monitor, but not too directly because I empower my team I entrust them with that responsibility, and I believe they can do a good job. So I'm very focused on the business aspect of the product, more on business acquisition, more on leveraging in terms of funding, in terms of being in spaces where we want to be. So that's been my main focus this year. So yes, I do a lot of looking at how things are operating, but I'm very focused now on the business side.
Yeah, the business side, yeah. And so I guess right now you're looking for, more funding always. I mean, I guess that's the one thing you realize when you become the CEO that you never have enough money or cash to pay everything. So
there's never enough money.
So are you looking for like a seed round of investment from a venture capitalist, or like a larger kind of what you call it, like a Series A round of investment? Like where are you currently in the funding cycle, would you say?
We're very open, for real. We're very open in terms of the funding, but we are looking more on the seed, funding. We are also very open because our product is very focused on women empowerment and leveraging on small businesses, also grants. We're very open to receiving grants that can help promote business in terms of the African contest and what we can do to leverage businesses and promote businesses in Africa. We as you said, it's very interesting when you start and we have put together a lot of money and you think the projection is a bit like 2 years, but
when you have to pay developers and then they need
they're very expensive
benefits or all these things.
Yeah, there's benefits. There's insurance. There's all those things.
All the NSSFs, the this, the that. If you don't have contractors, all these things. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's just managing. Also, the systems are not cheap.
Yeah.
The security systems, databases are not very cheap. So. When you look at that, and because also before we started the business, of course, we had a projection and also analyzed the cost. We know we need the funding to leverage what we have already accomplished. And as a product, it's a very good place where you can see the projections, what we are going to have maybe in the next 2 years. Very big margins we're going to push in the market.
Yeah. And
for real, the solution is needed and it's being asked for. So
sure.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity also for us to work with very good angel investors and also VCs. Yeah.
I think you have the MVP, it sounds like. So I think that's the good step to get in front of those investors, because that's usually what they want to see. Do you have a product?
Yes.
Do you have something that you've thought about that you can actually start acquiring customers? I think a lot of these seed round investors, they're not so interested until you're able to show something that you can actually deliver something.
Yeah.
But that's but I guess I assume it's coming pretty critical for y'all quite soon, with the runway and everything always burning down, that you're kind of on the tour to try to see which investors now you can get on board as soon as possible.
Yeah. We are trying.
and with your product, I mean, you're focused on the beauty industry. Is there any particular reason, like purely the beauty industry versus all these other service industries, or do you think you'll expand to different service industries, like, I don't know, dental offices or there's all these service businesses that need appointment scheduling and doing kind of this bookkeeping type of role? Or are you very passionate mainly about the salons and the beauty and everything?
I think that is something that's quite interesting that you have mentioned. Yeah. When we were doing mostly in terms of identifying who our customer will be, one of the things that came up, people were asking, are you able also to accommodate, maybe if I have a doctor's clinic, are you able to accommodate that in terms of your product? So I think for now, we are not yet into the dental and everything. Maybe they can leverage on the product just for those specific things that we have, but we want to, the final product, the market fit product will have different segments. Maybe if you're a barber shop, you can just go to specific and get a barber shop app. Yeah. And if you're a spa, you get one specifically for a spa. So we will do different small segments of the entire app. So that will be still on the books. We're still working on it. So if we get funding, we'll definitely build a product to suit different market segments.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have that focus strategy. I know with my company, SafeBoda, we ride-hailing app. We compete with Uber. We have the motorcycle taxi, the Boda taxi is where it started, and we expanded to do car taxi. But there's always a lot of pressure to expand our business to what they call a super app, to do mobile money transactions. And we talked about doing a cryptocurrency exchange and building all these features into the app that's outside of transport. And at some point in time, we pursued a lot of those features, but then we realize that, okay, sometimes it's helpful to come back to your core strategy, because if you know who your market is, like if it's the salon owners, you know that group of people well, and what they're looking for, and a dental office is maybe very different than the salon owners or various companies. So I think it could be very helpful, right? You have a strategy, but you're also building a platform that maybe could be expanded in the future.
Yes. I also think sometimes it's very good to manage maybe stakeholder needs and requirements. So a lot in terms of as you've said, you can build a super app and it has so many things, but then in terms of user experience and what you're getting and what the customer is understanding, maybe they're like, Safe Border is for border and taxi, but then they're like, why does it have money? Maybe something you can leverage on, maybe is the way I've said, to separate all these components and maybe have different small SaaS products for different markets, so that we don't put it together and it becomes so complex for the users. So it's good to have separate functionalities or separate items in the products.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I imagine, like we talked about a little bit, the guy who has a one chair and he's just shaving, he doesn't have like a really professional operation, is a very different customer for somebody who has a multi-location, these big fancy salons, like I don't know where they are, Village Market or different areas where they have like these big businesses. I would imagine those profiles. Do you kind of see that yourself as you're working with these groups of people? Do they have different, when you talk to them, they have different way of speaking
needs.
To you?
They have very different needs, and also they have very different requirements of the application. So you find someone that has, the way you say, someone that has just one store, we just think about scheduling, inventory, and analytics. They will not think about staff because maybe they're the only staff. So they will not have that as their interest in the application. But someone who has a stall in Karen, another one in Yaya Center, another one in Village Market, they will be thinking, how am I able to manage all these businesses in one single solution?
Yeah.
How much will it cost me? Am I able to see how, for instance, Rachel is performing? How is Scott performing? Is Scott bringing in money, or am I just paying them for sitting in the salon? Have I overstaffed, or have I understaffed this location? Maybe it's this person is very overbooked, and maybe there's so many inquiries of this service that I am not able to meet. Do I need to get more staff? Do I need to buy more product as another product in the inventory now that this product, is it almost over? Do I need to restock? Do I need to partners? One of the things which you want to do with the application, do a lot of partnerships and brands with service providers, so that they be able to get good deals and at a discount. So those kind of things, they'll be like, what is the added advantage of me having this versus not having it?
Oh, yeah.
So people that have very big businesses, they're a bit more aware about their needs and shortcomings of their businesses, and they need it. And another thing that you find is a challenge is that they're not able to measure performance at all. Yeah, so it's good for them to know how is the Yaya Center branch performing. Do we need to boost in terms of their marketing, or is this maybe the braiding is not being taken up? Do we need to, is this person not doing a good job, or is it that we are not marketed
they
braiding?
need more reports and analytics and all those things you normally wouldn't think about. Yeah.
What is the feedback from the customers? Are they saying they like it? Yeah, those kind of things.
Yeah. I had speaking of the salon, I had a kind of a funny story to tell you about my experience with the salon. So I come from Texas in the U.S., the place, these small town place where the cowboys are, and the people are not very sophisticated, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up. So I was used to, when I would get my hair cut, I would go to the barber shop, I guess is what you would call it, where you may pay 500 shillings for a haircut, and it was a very small thing. So as I got older, one time my wife, she came to me and she said, we needed to go to a wedding, and she said, your hair is messy, you need to go, you're gonna have to go today and get your hair cut for this wedding. It's very important to me. And there was only one place I knew to go. I'd never been to this place, but I needed it done right then. And so she said, there's this mall over here, and there's a place that looks very fancy, Salon, and you go do your hair there. So I went in there, and I've never been before. And so I go up to the receptionist, and I ask her, how much for a men's haircut? So the first thing she said is 5,000 Kenya shillings, the equivalent of that, for men's haircut. So you imagine, first I was saying, oh no, this is terrible.
Expensive.
How can you charge 5,000? I was making a big spectacle. I was almost shouting at the lady, but I knew my wife would be so angry if I didn't do the hair cutting right then. So I was thinking, okay. I told them, okay, I'll do the haircut with you, but it better be the best haircut I've ever had in my life for 5,000 shillings. Because even this was 20 years ago, you can imagine.
Yeah.
Even now, I don't know any place that charges 5,000 for a man's haircut in Nairobi. So I said, okay, I'll do the man's haircut. And I'd never been to the fancy salon, only the barber places. So I walk in there, and the guy, they have these, I don't know what you call it, kind of flamboyant guys, snapping around and moving around to the haircutting places. And he said, he hands me a robe, and he said, here's the robe to get your haircut. And I'd never been given a robe, but they usually put the thing on you to do the haircutting. But he handed me a robe, and he said, go to change in the room there.